In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 cosmic specs that might be worth picking up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we're going to talk about 5 cosmic specs that might be worth picking up for the MCU. Now, it's been a little while since I've done my last true spec video. I like to do my sleeper spec books with Swaggle type of thing. And in this video, we're basically going to kind of do something like that, except I kind of wanted to frame it as all being cosmic spec because I thought that that would be, more thematic. I mean, for me, I'm somebody who believes that Marvel is going to go more and more cosmic as we continue to get more properties in the MCU like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor and Silver Surfer and things like that. So I like to look at, the cosmic side of things to think about, what possible books could pop off in the market for spec reasons. But before I get into the books for today, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do one of those things, and I would appreciate it. But that said, before I jump into, the books here today, let me just preface and say, everybody watching, this is spec, this is speculation. Don't go out there and just start, buying this. I mean, do your own research. These are books that I personally think are interesting. And I only brought up books that, generally speaking, are pretty affordable. I mean, maybe on eBay, they're sitting around that $10 or $15 range. But hopefully you can go into an LCS and find them, in a back bin for even less than that. Like I've definitely come across a lot of these books, in dollar bins from time to time. And, if anything, maybe like $5 or so. So don't get FOMO. Don't go buying these books at, premiums or whatever. But, these are just interesting things that I have personally been, specking on and looking for whenever I'm out hunting. So with that said, let's get into the first book here. And this is the one that I think is, really interesting to me. I'm very, very excited about this one. This one right here is Quasar number 24 from 1991. Written by Mark Gruenwald. Now, if you've ever watched one of my spec videos before, you know that I always talk about Mark Gruenwald because I feel like anything that Mark Gruenwald has written in the past seems to make its way into the MCU in some kind of, form or fashion, or it feels like the people, in the creative team behind the MCU definitely are fans of Mark Gruenwald. So anytime that's a factor, I'm always going to talk about this. But what is the significance of this book? Well, this is the first appearance of Infinity, the sister of Eternity. So we all kind of know the cosmic beings like, the Living Tribunal, Infinity, Lord Order, Master Chaos, all those beings like that were, kind of in the Silver Surfer mythos. But this one right here is the first appearance of Infinity, who is the sister of Eternity. And why is Infinity to me like so significant? Well, she sort of represents, where one of those cosmic forces where Eternity represents sort of everything within the universe, and then he has an opposite, which is death, which is like the nothing of the universe. Infinity kind of represents like the vastness of that universe and is kind of related to Eternity. So I really like Infinity as a character that could potentially show up. I mean, we did get the illusion in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that Eternity did exist, and if that in fact is canon to the MCU, then certainly Infinity does exist. And it feels like the MCU has slowly been laying seeds for all these cosmic entities. I mean, we've had so many, Living Tribunal Easter eggs at this point. We had a few in Loki. We had him in reference in Doctor Strange. They've made mention of Eternity, like I just said. So it feels like they're sort of laying the foundation for these cosmic beings. Whether we ever get them kind of personified in any kind of way is still kind of in question. I mean, I think it's just a little bit hard for them to actually make a talking space god. But I do actually think that, as we continue to get power creep in the MCU, we will start to see these cosmic beings have some kind of influence within context to the MCU, or at least be, made more in reference or have, connections and things like that. So I think Infinity is one of those characters that could have that connection. And one of the reasons why I think that she could have that connection is because she is the creator of the quantum bands. Now, a lot of people feel like Quasar might make their way into the MCU. We don't know if it's going to be the Wendell Vaughn version of Quasar. We don't know if it's going to be the Guardians version of Quasar, the female Quasar. But it could, in fact, we could in fact get Quasar sometime soon. And if they're going to stick to sort of the comic lore for the quantum bands and Quasar and everything like that, then they need to have Infinity play a role in that because Infinity is the creator of that power. So Quasar number 24, first appearance of Infinity, sister to Eternity, I think is a really great pickup. All right, let's go on out to the next book here. And the next book is actually related to Infinity. This one here is Iceman, number 3 from 1985. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first full appearance of the character known as Oblivion. Now, Oblivion is actually the opposite of Infinity, another cosmic elder. So kind of like how eternity and death are sort of like opposites in the cosmic scale and balance of things, Infinity and Oblivion are the opposite as well. Obviously, Infinity being, the vastness of everything, and Oblivion being absolutely nothing. So they kind of represent those opposite cosmic forces. Additionally, this is also the first full appearance of Mirage, the daughter of Oblivion. She plays a factor in the storyline here, but is not necessarily why I think that this book is so interesting. I'm really more focused on Oblivion, but I'm pointing it out just because it is a factor of this book. Additionally, depending on how you fall into the side of things, whether you like cameo or you believe in cameos or you believe in first full appearances, Oblivion does make cameo appearances in issues number 1 and number 2 of this series. And it depends on what you think is a true first appearance, but you can decide for yourself if you'd rather spec on Iceman number 1 or Iceman number 2. In Iceman number 1, we kind of see images of his eyes, we see his arm, we see elements of his figure. In Iceman number 2, it's made mention the name Oblivion, and then in Iceman number 3, we get the absolute no denying this is Oblivion. We see him drawn in his personification of the character, and he actually has an interaction with Iceman. So this to me feels like it would be more the money book as far as what would be the true first full appearance of the character, but I'll let you guys decide which book you'd like to spec on. Additionally, one of the cool things about Oblivion is that he kind of exists outside the multiverse. He represents essentially nothingness, right? He represents the void. And so that actually gives him a strong connection to Null. In fact, Null is actually an avatar of Oblivion. So you could say Oblivion is the father of Null. We all think that Null is an important character, obviously in comic books right now with the King in Black storyline and the Venom universe and the symbiotes, etc. We might even see Null, maybe they're going to build it in the Sonyverse. We'll build our way up to, some kind of symbiote event crossover with Null being the big bad of that in the Venom universe. So I think Oblivion is a major, major character with regards to the lore of Marvel and the lore of Null. Additionally, he is also the father of Annihilus. We all think that Annihilus might be coming because of the Fantastic Four. Annihilus is a very, very important character for, Marvel comics and is a very important villain to the Fantastic Four. And Oblivion is the father of Annihilus. So again, Oblivion is kind of the overlord of all of these beings. And, throughout, Marvel comics, Oblivion has kind of recruited many, many avatars to fight for him on his behalf. And whereas Infinity has also had avatars fight for her on her behalf, and then those avatars usually clash in many kind of ways. So Iceman number 3, first full appearance of Oblivion, another cosmic entity that I think is really, really interesting. All right, let's go on now to the next book. And the next one is very interesting and one that I think, has been slowly heating up in the market due to a lot of speculation that, of course, I'm going to get into in a second. But this is Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, number 31 from 1991, written by Roy Thomas. And this is one of those books that came out in that, volume 3 of Doctor Strange that was, kind of going on in the 90s. And what is the significance of this book? Well, this is the first full team appearance of the Fear Lords. It is also the first appearance of a character known as Nox, who is speculated to be Nyx, and Nyx has a connection to Olympus and sort of like that sort of Greek mythology. She is actually the goddess of night. But one of the reasons why I think this book right here is so interesting is because of the appearance of the Fear Lord team. Now, who are the Fear Lords? Well, the Fear Lords are a bunch of super powerful demons that all kind of represent or get their power from the aspect of fear. We're talking about Nightmare, we're talking about the Dweller in the Dark, characters like that. And one of the reasons why I think that this book is so interesting is because we all know that in Shang-Chi, spoilers ahead here, they actually had a character that Shang-Chi had to go against known as the Dweller in the Dark. So the Dweller in the Dark actually made an appearance in the MCU, and the Dweller in the Dark is actually one of the Fear Lords. So this is kind of, is really interesting to me as far as like speculation is concerned, that they would introduce this concept of Fear Lords, like these type of super powerful demon creatures. And it feels like if we're in fact going to kind of continue to explore this idea that was created in Shang-Chi, or maybe, we're going to get more of this in other movies later on down the line, it seems like the MCU would definitely want to build out their Fear Lord ensemble. And of course, the main player within that group of the Fear Lords is definitely Nightmare. And for a long time, it had been speculated that, we were going to get Nightmare in Doctor Strange 2. It feels like based on all the rumors, we're not necessarily going to see him yet, but it does feel like, there has been consideration for Nightmare in some kind of way, and it feels like maybe that was like a little bit of the discussion of like, hey, we can build out this idea of fear lords and have this be, kind of like an event thing that maybe characters like Blade and Ghost Rider and Moon Knight and the Midnight Suns all like battle these guys later on. So I like this book because of the first team appearance of the Fear Lords. I like it because it has Nox in it, who is like, of the Fear Lords is a somewhat important character. And of course, because we got our first Fear Lord in Shang-Chi, it definitely feels like that could be a string that they pull on for future movies in the MCU. All right, moving on to the next spec that I wanted to talk about, and this one is actually going to be Giant Size Fantastic Four #2 from 1974, written by Gary Conway. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of a character known as Tempest. And who is Tempest? Well, Tempest is actually an agent of Immortus. And of course, we all know that we got Immortus in the end of the Loki show, or at least we got, He Who Remains, that we all can kind of assume is Immortus in some kind of way. And Tempest is like Immortus is one of his main agents. And, I've talked about on this channel in other videos about spec and stuff, talking about, Kang's agents like the Anachronauts and Giant Man and things like that. And, for that reason, it gets me excited to think about the agent characters and how they might play a role later on in the MCU. And Tempest is one of those characters. I feel like later on, it feels like we're going to get all of the versions of Kang, battling each other. We're going to see Ramatut, Immortus, Scarlet Centurion, et cetera, et cetera. And it feels like maybe we're going to get that battle that's actually a bunch of Kangs and their minions also going against each other. So characters like the Anachronauts going against Tempest, etc. Tempest is also really interesting as a character because what I like about him is that he was created in limbo. He sort of exists outside of time, and Tempest actually has no variance. So he exists in all multiverses at the same exact time. So kind of like there's only a few characters that in Marvel comic books exist this way. The Living Tribunal is one of those, right? He sort of exists outside the multiverse. Then there's characters like, I think America Chavez actually is like this too. There's only one of her that exists because she can jump in two different multiverses. And then Tempest additionally is this type of character who exists outside of time. And so I think that origin and that lore is going to continue to be explained because they still have to sort of explain away like why the Infinity Stones didn't work inside, the Time Variance Authority. And they're going to need to kind of explain this idea of limbo and what that castle was and what the powers are and how the rules all work within the multiverse and things like that. So I think Tempest is a character that could actually be a vehicle to kind of explore that and explain that. But regardless, I still think that Tempest is a very, very powerful being that is the, agent of Immortus. And I think that when we get more Immortus in the MCU, which I really do believe we're going to see more of Immortus, I think that they'll start to introduce characters that relate to him, and Tempest is one of those characters. So Giant Size Fantastic Four #2, I think is a really great book. All right, and the last cosmic sort of sleeper spec that I wanted to talk about is this one right here. This is Thor #300 from 1980, written by Mark Gruenwald. You know me, I already did my Mark Gruenwald preface, so I won't talk about him again. But what is the significance of this book? Well, this is the first appearance of the Council of Godheads. And you can see right there, I put in parentheses Zeus. Now, the Council of Godheads is actually a council that has all the different gods from all the different sort of like belief systems that exist within humanity. So we're talking about, Ra, we're talking about Buddha, we're talking about Zeus, we're talking about Odin, etc. So all of the gods that exist within the lore of religion are actually a part of this Council of Godhead. So, we all know that in the next movie for Thor #4, it's already been confirmed that Russell Crowe is going to be playing Zeus. And that sort of got me thinking that, yes, it's possible that we might be seeing Olympus in some kind of way. But to me, I also think it might actually be possible that we're going to see the Council of Godheads, because I think it might be important for Marvel to kind of canonize all of the different gods and belief systems. Like if we're going to get Moon Knight and we got to explore Ra and the Egyptian side of things, and then we're also introducing, or we also already have Asgard with Odin, and we have the Norse mythology, and we need to canonize like the Greek mythology. I think that might be where they introduce Russell Crowe. And then that to me makes me think that, that's where they'll have Gore play a role in this, where, Gore is going to be the God Butcher. So maybe Gore actually wants to go up against the Council of Godheads. Additionally, this book is just a great book because it, really goes into the origin of Odin. It has very, very important lore building for the character of Thor. It's revealed that Gaia is actually Thor's mother within context to the lore in this book. It also has a connection to the Godheads and how they relate to the Celestials, and actually how the gods of Earth actually bow down to the Celestials. So a very important book. And as far as like all of these connections are concerned, we got the gods, we got Celestials, we got the origin of Odin, things like that. So not to go full Pepe Sylvia here.
This whole box is Pepe Sylvia!
But I think all of the different plot heads that exist within context to this book could definitely play a role in the MCU moving forward. Well, that is all I have for this video. Those are my 5 cosmic specs that might be worth picking up for the MCU. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Again, full warning, don't go, spending the farm on these books. Definitely just take your time. Don't go FOMO, find them out there in the wild, because I feel like these are books that you can come across in back bins and dollar bins for, $5 or so. But I think that they have a lot of potential because I think there's a lot of interesting things they have going for them, especially as, the Marvel continues to build out its cosmic universe. Anyways, drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.